this month, we'll get your game UL certified by showing you the evolution of the golf club technology with our Matt Adams. And Matt is the host of Fairways of Life, but also an expert when it comes to equipment. So, Matt, good to be with you.
Good to see you, Gare.
All right, the evolution of equipment. Everybody's looking for that dream club. Let's talk about the evolution of golf equipment through the course of time.
I think everybody always has been looking for that dream club, because when you look at golf equipment up until about the 1850s, they were basically wood. And so from that time, you had the long nose driver and all these really cool looking clubs. You still can find them in some antique shops. They were made by the likes of even old Tom Morris. But again, they were made out of wood, and they were mostly hitting featheries, which of course was take leather, boil a bunch of feathers, stuff them in there, then let them dry. And that ball actually got a lot harder than what people think it did, but they'd knock it around this field and try to get it into a little rabbit hole. It started to change in the decades after.
All right, let's talk about one specific material. Metals.
Yes.
When did metals start to become introduced into the game and get all the way up to the highest levels?
It's interesting, Gary, because it really had a lot to do with when they stopped needing metal for swords. So when you could put iron and the nickel, as the better quality swords, if you would, could be made into clubs. Now, one of the great practitioners of irons was old Tom Morris's son, young Tom, who could hit it around the old course quite well. So it was the late 1850s and onward where iron started to come into use as a golf club. And they would take it and make it just like they did a horseshoe, for example. It would be pounded together by brute force. And that's why still, if you look through the history books of golf equipment, you see these crazy clubs that existed back in the day.
How about Billy Burke, 1931 U.S. Open? Do you consider that a landmark event, not only because it was a 72-hole playoff, steel shafts?
Yes, steel shafts, but he actually had them colored so they looked
That's
like
correct.
wood.
Yes.
So people weren't too shocked by it. So it was a transition, and it's an important point that you bring up, because a lot of people don't realize that only the year before that, when Bobby Jones won his Grand Slam, he won the Grand Slam using hickory shafts in his club still at that time. And so everybody thinks, you know, hickory shafts, you're going to have some consistency. You didn't have consistency. You could have what would be a woman's flex in one shaft and have the stiffest shaft in the world in another within the same set, which is why they spent so much time trying to figure out which hickory shaft was right for them.
Okay, this is an important one for everybody. When you hear cast, you hear forged, there's misnomers, there are myths. Explain to everybody the difference, if you would, please.
Well, to put it in simplistic terms, remember what we were talking about with the carbon earlier, the carbon steel into irons. Carbon steel is what they forge out of now, and it's called the drop forging. It is still stamped with brute force just like it used to be, but it's 50,000 pounds per square inch that goes slamming down on this metal. Then they polish it up and they make it look like a work of art. Cast is very different. Cast is made the same way that your fork or your knife is made at home. You take a wax mold. You pour over it liquid ceramic. The ceramic dries, you heat it, you drill a hole, you drain out the wax, you pour in molten stainless steel, let that harden and break away the ceramic, and what you have is an exact mold of what was before. They polish it up, they clean it up, they make a beautiful club out of it. That's why they call it perimeter weighting. That's why they call it the forgiveness clubs, because they can put the weight wherever they want to. And that's really the future of golf clubs, as well as the technology continues to evolve, because we can use a variety of different metals in the clubs that we use for these irons, but we can also move the weight around to very, very specific spots.
It's fascinating to see where technology is going. Every time you think there's a ceiling, they bust through the ceiling and they go new places. That's an education. Matt, thank you very much. Get Your Game UL Certified is brought to you by UL, a safety science company. Together, we'll help you get your game UL Certified.